story we have been following throughout the past 2 days surrounds the superstar herself, Caitlin Clark, the WNBA star, the Indiana Fever star, Caitlin Clark. She's going to miss all the action on the court.
Caitlin Clark gets hurt, and guess what? Your demand vanishes because people ain't going to pay up to see these athletes that are ungrateful that their sport's growing. People aren't paying up for that. And we are here, right here. The tickets for this game, for this All-Star game, they've dropped by 50%.
What was supposed to be Caitlin Clark's coronation week in Indianapolis has turned into a nightmare scenario for the WNBA. The city put up a massive 34-story ad of Clark on the JW Marriott, expecting record crowds and massive revenue. Instead, they got empty seats and angry fans boycotting the All-Star game. The question everyone's asking, how did the league manage to turn their biggest star's hometown celebration into a financial disaster? And what did Kathy Engelberg finally say about the officiating crisis during All-Star Weekend? The answer reveals everything wrong with how the WNBA treats the players who actually bring in fans. Let us know down in the comments below if you think the WNBA will ever learn its lesson. Let's go.
Come to Indianapolis. Look, this is what everybody's been talking about. This right here, Caitlin Clark, the banner right there on the JW Marriott. It is 34 stories banner, unbelievable. Is the largest banner ever on the JW Marriott. You may think about the bracket. Remember back in the NCAA tournament back in 2021? Yeah, it's bigger than that as well. 113,000 square feet. It is unbelievable. And you see what it says, from downtown in my town. No doubt, this is something that is grabbing everyone's attention. And who else better to be on that than the star herself, Caitlin Clark.
Indianapolis spent months preparing for what they thought would be the biggest WNBA weekend in history. The city put up a replica all-star basketball court at the airport. Local businesses stocked up on inventory and hired extra staff. Gainbridge Fieldhouse had sold out within hours when tickets first went on sale. The get-in price hit $121, with average resale tickets going for $262, with the best seats going for thousands, the highest in WNBA All-Star Game history according to TickPick.
Really unfortunate that Caitlin Clark missed it. The crowd would have been exploding. The crowd would have been exploding. The arena would have been exploding. Oh man, a big miss as far as the WNBA is concerned.
Then July 17th happened. Clark's groin injury announcement hit social media, and everything changed in real time. You could literally watch the ticket market collapse hour by hour. Those 262 average prices, they crashed to $64 within hours of the news breaking. That's a 75% drop in value, and sellers were panicking. The resale market went into complete freefall. People who had bought tickets as investments were suddenly trying to offload them at massive losses. The get-in price dropped from $121 to around $65. And even at those rock-bottom prices, buyers weren't exactly rushing in. This wasn't some gradual decline over days. This was a financial catastrophe happening in real time on social media.
$121 all the way down to just $64 after news broke that Caitlin Clark won't be playing. These are people saying, I'm done. I don't want to watch. Caitlin Clark's not. I bought tickets solely to watch Caitlin Clark in the All-Star game. I made accommodations solely to get to Indiana to watch Caitlin Clark in the All-Star game. She is injured. I have no interest in that anymore. People are selling their tickets so much so they just want off of them. 121, okay. You want it for 100? Oh no, okay. I guess I gotta lower it to 80. Oh, you don't want to buy it for 80? Okay, I guess I'll lower it to 70. You don't want to buy it to 70? I guess I'll lower it to $64. The WNBA is paying attention to these trends, and they're seeing firsthand what Caitlin Clark is worth to this league.
You know what makes this even more brutal? This pattern had happened before, but never at this scale. When Clark missed regular season games with her quad strain in May, road game prices dropped significantly. The Washington game saw a 47% price drop, and that high-demand Chicago game prices fell 71%. But those were regular season games. This was the All-Star game in her hometown, and the crash was unprecedented.
The ticket prices, the demand fell off a cliff. And it's not just the on-court product that suffers without number 22, Caitlin Clark. The entire weekend's economic opportunities have felt the fallout.
Gainbridge Fieldhouse was about to face its first non-sellout of the entire season. Think about that. A building that had been packed for almost 2 years for every single Fever game was now looking at empty seats for the biggest basketball weekend Indianapolis had hosted since the NBA All-Star Game. The math was brutal for everyone involved. Vendors who had invested thousands in All-Star Weekend merchandise were staring at massive losses. Restaurants and hotels that had been expecting record crowds were suddenly looking at cancellations. The economic ripple effect spread through downtown Indianapolis as the reality set.
But when it comes to the vendors in the arena, the shops in the arena, they're not going to have the same amount of people patronize their business as they would if Caitlin Clark was there. The surrounding restaurants, the surrounding areas, the surrounding attractions, they're not going to have the same number of people patronize their business as they would if Caitlin Clark was healthy.
This wasn't just about one player missing one game. Fans were sending the clearest possible message about who actually drives interest in the WNBA. When other star players get injured, ticket prices don't crater like this. The market was basically saying that without Clark, the All-Star game wasn't worth attending. The crash exposed something the league desperately didn't want to admit. Their entire record-breaking season was built around one player. Without her, all those attendance records and revenue milestones suddenly looked a lot less impressive.
For the second time ever, the WNBA All-Star Game was supposed to feature an actual star. Normally, this celebration of pretend basketball features players that no one's ever heard of.
Clark's groin injury didn't just happen out of nowhere. This was the inevitable result of months of escalating physical play that referees consistently refused to call. Opposing players figured out they could grab, shove, and hammer Clark without consequences, and the refs just kept swallowing their whistles.
How did we get to an all-star game in Indiana where Caitlin Clark is not healthy enough to play? Well, it all started last year, in her rookie season, where she received 20% of all the flagrant fouls in the league. And most of them came from Angel Reese in the Chicago Sky. And these weren't basketball plays. They were not only fouling her, but they were getting up, laughing about it, laughing about Caitlin Clark getting assaulted. Any other work environment, people go to jail for what's going on.
Stephanie White saw this coming from miles away. The Fever coach has been calling out the double standard in officiating all season, saying there's a level of physicality that they're able to play with against her that other players don't face. White wasn't being dramatic. She was watching her star player get beaten up game after game while referees looked the other way.
And there's a level of physicality that they're able to play with against her. I knew it as an opponent, and I see it as her coach. I'm not exactly sure why, but it just is what it is. And we've got to help her learn to adjust and use it against them in certain ways. We've got to find some ways to make it a little bit easier for her. But the level of physicality overall in our league has been at a different level than it's been for a long time.
Let's be real about what was happening on the court. The Washington Post called out the chronically lousy second-rate officiating that was turning games into ugly physical contests. They literally suggested the league should change its logo to a bruise and its motto to no call. That's not hyperbole. That's what fans were watching every single night. You want specific examples? Teams were hooking and hammering Clark with zero calls. Video after video showed defenders grabbing her arms, shoving her off screens, and fouling her on drives without any whistles. The refs just watched it happen. This created a culture where targeting Clark became a legitimate strategy for opposing teams. And last year,
I noticed how much it was just Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark was taking all the hits. Caitlin Clark was taking all the abuse. But this year they've added Sophie Cunningham. She gets more flagrant fouls on her than anybody in the league besides Caitlin Clark. And Aaliyah Boston, she's been taking hits as well. But the worst thing is the consistency. So they don't call flagrant fouls, or most of the time, Caitlin Clark could be held for an entire game at a time. They don't call fouls. They don't call common fouls. But then when it's the Indiana Fever, guess what? Touch foul here, touch foul here. They call absolutely nothing.
Here's what makes this even worse. Other star players in sports history got protection from officials. The league's biggest draws don't usually get treated like practice dummies. But Clark, she was getting crushed while refs acted like they forgot their job description. The numbers tell the story of a league that's failing to protect its players. There have been 57 head and neck injuries in the past 2.5 seasons. Guards and small forwards are getting particularly crushed, according to the same Washington Post analysis. This isn't normal wear and tear. This is a pattern of dangerous play being allowed to continue. Lisa Leslie knows exactly what Clark is facing with this groin injury. The WNBA legend dealt with her own groin injury in 2006 and warned that these injuries can linger for months or even years. That's the reality Clark now faces because referees refuse to do their jobs. This wasn't bad luck or just part of basketball. This was the predictable outcome of a league that refuses to protect its most valuable asset. Every uncalled grab, every ignored shove, every foul that went without a whistle built up to this moment. The officiating crisis has now cost the WNBA millions in revenue and exposed their complete failure to manage the game. When your biggest star gets injured because you won't protect her, don't be surprised when fans stop showing up.
They had that injury 2006, and listen, I was heavily taped around my thigh, around my glute, just trying to make sure there was enough pressure to hold that groin. And the hard part is that the groin is sort of an area that you can't just touch and go, oh, it hurts right here. You feel it deep. You have to get a lot of deep treatment, whether it's ice and heat and rest. Well, Caitlin Clark, she can't find a lot of rest right now because she's mid-season. But I think that injury is really tough because it lingers. No matter how much medicine you take, you can feel fine. You get back out there, one move, one change of direction, and boom, you're right back feeling that same type of pain. So it's going to be a tough injury that she's going to have to manage.
How long did it take you to recover from?
To be honest, Tracy, I play tennis and I can still feel that injury linger because I don't know that it ever really goes away. You just learn to manage and play.
As fans organized boycotts and ticket sales crashed in real time, everyone waited to see how Kathy Engelbert would handle the biggest crisis of her tenure as WNBA commissioner. This was her moment to show real leadership and address the officiating problems that led to Clark's injury. Instead, she delivered exactly the kind of sanitized corporate response that made fans even angrier.
A bunch of players and coaches over the last few days have complained without being fine-worthy about officiating. I just want to see about your thoughts on if officiating is an issue and how it can be improved. Because clearly there seems to be problems or disconnect between what players and coaches feel and what officials are actually calling.
When pressed about the refereeing issues during All-Star Weekend, Engelbert gave the typical executive non-answer. She called a meeting with over 40 players and league stakeholders productive and constructive, emphasizing shared goals while completely sidestepping the core problem. Fans didn't want to hear about productive meetings. They wanted accountability for the refs who let Clark get beaten up all season long.
You know, as a fan of sports for 60 years now, I know that, no one's ever happy with officiating. All sports deal with it, but we're working hard to make sure we're putting the best product out on the court, and our officiating then follows that.
Her response ignored the financial damage playing out in real time across Indianapolis. While ticket prices crashed and businesses faced massive losses, Engelbert was talking about maintaining team profitability and constructive dialogue. The disconnect was stunning. Fans were literally voting with their wallets, and she acted like everything was business as usual. You know what fans actually wanted to hear? A direct acknowledgement that the officiating had been terrible. They wanted concrete changes to protect players like Clark. They wanted someone to admit that letting opposing teams target your biggest star is bad for business. Instead, they got corporate speak about shared goals and productive conversations. Engelbert's tone-deaf response proved that leadership is completely out of touch with both fans and players. While Indianapolis businesses counted their losses and fans organized boycotts, she was talking about maintaining the status quo. Her failure to address the officiating crisis directly made the boycott worse, not better.
They play against Breanna Stewart. She goes to the line 14 times. Asia Wilson goes to the line 13 times. And Aaliyah Boston can't play 20 minutes in a game without being on the bench in foul trouble. That's another problem that we're dealing with. But like I said, this year, it's not just Caitlin Clark. If you wear that Indiana Fever jersey, consider it done. The refs are not going to be fair, and they are going to cheat and do whatever it takes to do what the higher ups say.
The commissioner's weak leadership during this crisis has fans questioning whether the WNBA can actually change. When your biggest revenue driver gets injured because refs won't protect her, and your response is corporate platitudes about productive dialogue, you've lost the plot entirely. Fans saw right through the empty promises and responded accordingly. They stopped buying tickets. The WNBA got exactly what they deserved, an all-star game that fans called an abomination to the sport of basketball. Without Clark, the league was left trying to sell a product that nobody wanted to buy. And the results were brutal to watch. The game itself became a painful reminder of what happens when you don't protect your stars. Empty seats dotted Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The energy was flat and the basketball was terrible. This was supposed to be the showcase event of the season, but it felt more like a practice scrimmage that nobody cared about.
I mean, you're going to mess around and a large, massive group of fans are going to be like, enough is enough. We've never had to see anything like it in sports, but you don't see these other leagues going around talking crazy about their fan bases all the time like this league does. It's continuous. They're running their mouth about the people that are paying money to see them. You don't have other jobs where people walk up. You're in a public job that's in front of the...
The four-point shot gimmick made everything worse. Instead of real basketball, fans got what one source called a glorified layup line with players just jacking up shots from way behind the arc. The lack of defense was embarrassing. Nobody was trying, nobody was competing, and the whole thing turned into an unwatchable mess that alienated the fans who actually tune in for real basketball. You know what became a bigger story than the actual game? The New York Liberty sending their mascot to recruit Clark during All-Star Weekend. Think about that for a second. A team mascot making recruitment pitches generated more buzz than the game itself. The Liberty's aggressive pursuit of Clark showed they understood something the league didn't: how to treat a prized possession. Their actions overshadowed everything happening on the court,